Let's go. Tonight I'll be speaking about my lessons as an entrepreneur in Vietnam. A few years ago, my husband and I made a life-changing decision. We decided to leave our corporate jobs in Europe and travel in Asia, and we finally settled in Vietnam. I launched a business there in a country I didn't know, in a language I didn't speak. And so tonight I wanted to share with you some of the lessons I learned from the mistakes I made, so that you don't have to make them. I'm an INSEAD grad, like some of you, raise your hands, in the audience. And so I founded a website called hervietnam.com. It was a leading online women community in Vietnam, the #1 women fan page in the country. And I managed to raise funds from one of the top portals. My question though is, was I a born entrepreneur? And I hope to demystify that for you. When I first started, I resisted the urge to spend 6 months doing a very long business plan. Instead, I got a group of women together and we launched the website. The first lesson, coming up, is pretty obvious. Is when you are doing business in a country that's not your own, is you have to adapt to the local environment. And for me, I really summarize that into 3 key points: patience, plan B, and practical innovation. I'll explain what that means. I'll call it the 3 Ps because it's an MBA audience after all, and we like acronyms. So we all learned at INSEAD in our finance classes and outside of INSEAD, obviously, that cash is king. Well, in Vietnam, cash is king, but the red stamp is also king. Actually, you can see the red stamp right there. And without the red stamp, you cannot do business, you cannot build clients. And obtaining the red stamp requires a lot of patience. When we first set up our office, our landlord assured us that we would never experience a single power cut because we were directly linked up to the military power grid. Well, these are photos from the power grid next to our office. And as you can see, as you can imagine, that plan fell through. So we had an SMS alert system and were able to relocate throughout the city when we had power cuts. Some people think the Vietnamese are not very good at innovation, that they're better at execution. I think that when we look at how the Vietnamese use their motorbikes in Saigon, we'd probably conclude the opposite. They're quite good at what I would call practical innovation, how to solve everyday challenges. And that was very useful for us. I also read the book, I don't know if you guys have read it, about guerrilla marketing. It's quite useful. And when you have a very bootstrap budgets, you can only do guerrilla, and I'll give you a few examples of that technique. I've also learned the difference between a corporate marketing manager and a guerrilla marketing manager. So one of the first lessons of the book is that you should partner with those who have bigger pockets than you. In our case, we partnered with Samsung Mobile, and we were lucky enough, through a content partnership, to have our logo on posters all over Vietnam. So literally millions of people saw our logo. Not sure how many recognized it, but that was great for our exposure. If you're willing to relocate to a market which is not 100% on the map for most business MBAs, then you become a little bit more newsworthy, and you can use that to get free press. So in our case, I marketed my family, my son, anything to get free press. This is probably one of the most important lessons is, there are market fundamentals that you can't ignore. And when you are starting your own business, you really become aware of market dynamics, what's revenue, what's cash, what's working capital requirements. And sometimes you might lose sight of those basic matrices and be looking at the wrong ones. For example, in the case of Vietnam, there's high growth in that market, and a lot of people are looking at growth numbers. They're very impressive. We forget sometimes to look at absolute numbers, market size, GDP per capita, and those are the real drivers. And by looking at the right matrices, you would understand the market better. Market timing is very important. Is the market ready for you? In our case, we were selling very high-end digital marketing campaigns, talking about social ROI, things like that, to clients who didn't even have a website when we first started. And one of my clients called me and said, "Can I please take her to the Facebook office so she could book a banner?" So it gives you an idea. Vietnam has a lot of business owners, millions of business owners, and their ability to pay is quite different. And sometimes it's not, the people who have the ability to pay are not the ones you would think. Some luxury retail owners spend a lot on real estate and have no money for marketing. When you're making your business plan, you get very excited with the numbers. Some of the numbers you see, for example, the cost of labor. And what you forget is that behind the low cost of labor, there's also a low productivity. So our office renovation, these are real photos from our office renovation, took a little bit longer than planned in the business plan. Company culture. Everybody talks about company culture. I used to think it was only for large companies. It does not apply to startups. When my mentors mentioned company culture, I used to nod and just think how out of touch they were with the startup world. But actually, it turns out company culture has everything to do with startups. I really say company culture is the glue that keeps the company together. And in high growth markets that you have in this region, there's a lot of turnover. It's not uncommon to have the whole team turn over in less than a year. So company culture and team building is really what keeps the company together. Our community manager there stayed with us for 4 years. This is our designer married his co-worker, and all that was very helpful. Finally, I didn't have a co-founder, and really that's what I missed. I've heard people say that finding a co-founder is really on the same level as finding a husband or a wife. And that if you have a husband or a wife, having a co-founder is like bringing a third party into the relationship. But the fact is, being an entrepreneur can be quite lonely, as some of you would know, and sometimes I felt like this. I blindfolded, going uphill, being guided by people who didn't know the directions, and I wanted to give it my resignation letter, but obviously there's nobody to give it to. If you have a co-founder, you can share your downs and your ups, and it's very helpful. So I would say, if you want to jump into entrepreneurship, find the right partners, go for it. Starting a company in a country like Vietnam was one of the most rewarding professional experiences in my life, and I would really encourage you to go for it. Thank you.